The Human Self and Iblees. Translation of Iblees O Adam. Translated and edited. Dr. Ajaz Rasul, UK. The Quranic Concept of Satan and Perspective on Human Desires, Emotions, Intellect and Wahi. Author. Ghulam Ahmad Parwez. One man. For us today the birth of a human child has become an ordinary and normal event, just like the rising and setting of the sun. But when man, bound in the links of the chain of cause and effect, turns the pages of the book of creation backwards, his astounded gaze will, of a surety, halt at that point which he declares as being the very first link in the process of human creation. On reaching this astonishing valley, he remains taken aback as to how did that very first man come into existence. His bewilderment is justified, and his astonishment is valid. The reality of the outcome of human research and investigation and all of its resultant discoveries and inventions is only this much: that with his persistent efforts he lifts up the covers which lie on the various causes and effects of the different parts of the functioning of the universe. But where the last link of this long process appears, nothing remains before his inquisitive vision other than a screen of bafflement. This degree of bemusement and perplexity is determined in proportion to the level of human knowledge and research. In other words, the extent to which the stages of knowledge and wisdom keep advancing forward is the extent to which this point will also keep inching forward proportionally. This is that very place at having reached which the difference between a materialistic atheist and a hack recognizing Momen becomes clearly evident. Beyond this point, the former makes the valley of bewilderment the abode of his intellectual conjectures, and in this way keeps stumbling about himself and also misguides others from the path. But a wise Momen, having reached that point, proclaims unhesitatingly that the beginning of this long process owes itself to that Mashrit which is not in need of resources, and to that Samdet unfamiliar with effects of the Omnipotent, who is free from the physical chains of resources and means and is not dependent on causes and effects. As a result of his evidence-based vision he proclaims this great fact. And in this way, that valley of bewilderment and astonishment which was in tatters from the conjectures of an atheistic scholar, becomes bright and sparkling by the torch of Iman and the light of conviction of this self-aware individual absorbed in the path of Allah. 1.1 The very first human being. How that very first human being came into being is that point of bewilderment which has been mentioned above. When human consciousness opened its eyes for the first time, it beheld a kaleidoscope of wonderment all around it. The boundless expanses of the surface of the earth, the limitless depths of the heavens above, a fearsome stormy ocean before it, a towering range of mountains on either side causing shivers, a suspended and massive ceiling above, the appearance of a fireball every morning on the other side of the horizon, and its setting every evening in a blood-colored stream of dusk, the twinkling display of the assembly of stars, the glittering dust of the Milky Way, and the goblet of light of the moon. When he observed this stupefying, magical display, his eyes gaped. How could he possibly have comprehended what this amazing system of the universe is? From where did the earth appear? From where have the mountains come into existence? Where does the sun come from and to where does it disappear? How was it that this moon, these stars, these oceans were created? These questions arose repeatedly before him and left him each time in an ever-new world of perplexity. How could that poor soul possibly have comprehended? From where does this verdure appear? What thing are the clouds? What is wind? And when he could understand nothing about how it was that the general visible universe became created, then how could he possibly resolve this conundrum about how that very first man was born? The most he could do was to appease his heart by saying that initially a figure of clay must have somehow become made into which life must have been infused. And then by splitting the rib of this figure, a wife must have been created for it from this. And from this pair, the process of progeny must have proceeded onwards. What could the poor soul have said other than this? But when a measure of maturity reached his consciousness and he had traversed through some stages of his life, then this reasoning resulting from the era of his nascent age could not remain as a cause for his satisfaction and rationale for his inquisitiveness. His curiosity took the form of efforts in inquiry and a burning urge to investigate. And according to the potential for knowledge of natural sciences which had been bestowed in him, he began to endeavor to unknot these convoluted secrets. And slowly and gradually, his investigations took the form of that conclusion which is called the theory of organic evolution. 1.2 The theory of organic evolution. His searching eyes assessed that a process of evolution of gradual change is continuing in an organized and coordinated fashion in the universe. In other words, everything is passing step by step through the stages of development and evolution according to a specific law, and in this way is continuing to change from one state to another state. This change and transformation is taking place in such an imperceptible kind of manner that a cursory glance cannot discern it tangibly. And then these changes manifest after such a lengthy period of time that it is difficult for the human memory to keep a record of it. Hence, for these gradual transformations you have to turn to the pages of the treatise of nature itself and to the signs and remains of archaeological treasures buried in the earth. After studying these scattered pages of the book of nature, the conclusion which the human intellect has arrived at about the creation of man is, in brief words, as follows. 1. The beginning of life on the surface of the earth occurred from water. 2. By the combining of water and clay the first cell of life was bestowed with a form. 3. Having divided into various species, these germs of life began to grow and spread out like the branches of a tree. 4. Various transformations continued to occur in the forms of these cells after stages comprising of thousands and thousands of years. 5. After passing through these very long time periods, this process of creation then reached that stage which is designated as creation through reproduction, i.e., the animalistic life. 6. It was after traversing these kinds of intangible and lengthy phases of time that, stage by stage, the animalistic life transfigured into the human form. It was in this way that the beginning of mankind took place. These were the discoveries about human creation which appeared before Western scholars following scientific research and empirical observations. Contrary to this, whatever was written in their religious books, the Bible, about human creation could not stand up before this knowledge-based research for even one moment. As a consequence of this, researchers there reached this conclusion. And their reaching this conclusion was justified. That religious books were based on tales of that era when human consciousness was still in its infancy. Therefore the narratives and explanations in these books are not even worth considering in the light of knowledge and reasoning. To this end, Western thinkers were truthful in their opinion, but by not carrying out any research they mistakenly assumed that every religious book is a collection of these kinds of fictional narratives. If they had not made haste in this matter, and had availed themselves of personal research in this respect in the same way that they would reach a certain conclusion only after conducting research and study as they did in other matters of life, then this fact would have been unveiled to them that in the world of religions there is such a book whose proclamation is, O Messenger, say to them that this is my way, I do invite you to Allah on evidence clear as the seeing with one's eyes, and whoever follows me also invite in this way. In the universe the law of Allah is established which is far above the ignorance of superstitions and the possessor of such powers in which the other power of none other is included. I only accept this law and invite you to the same. 12:108. This proclamation from the Arabian desert arose at that time from the lips of an Ummi Nabi when the inhabitants of the West were still covering themselves with leaves and the skins of animals. But the West did not make this voice, the Quran, the subject of their scholarly research, and by accepting as reality the fictional tales invented by the priests, treated it with criminal ignorance. The result of this was that a complete book of knowledge and vision like the Quran was considered as an opponent of knowledge and intellect. For the evolution of human knowledge that day was an extremely lamentable one when this fatwa was issued from the established research of Europe that the Quran, like the Bible, is also a collection of stories from the past. Superstitious tales. Never was a bigger lie than this told in the world. A stupidity greater that this was never committed by those possessing wisdom and vision. Today, it is only with difficulty that it can be assessed what a great source of knowledge the West and together with it the rest of humanity became deprived of due to this wrong decision. If the Quran had appeared in its true form in front of those Western seekers of reality, then who knows what the world would have become today. Under the topic in view, the remarkable achievement of science is the theory of organic evolution. Just turn over the pages of the Quran and see what it has to say in this respect. 1.3 The Quran and Discoveries of Science. As has been written in other places, the Quran is not a book of scientific research. Its real subject is to shape such a society in which the development of the latent potentials of the whole of humanity takes place, and in this way human eminence reaches its completion. But in the process of explanation and elaboration of this great aim other matters are additionally mentioned. And since this mention is from Allah, the all-knowing and wise, who is the creator of the universe, therefore it can never happen that some sign about the universe comes from him and that this is, Allah forbid, contrary to the truth. Even the slightest remark by the inventor and creator of a machine about that machine will be based on fact. Should he not know, he that created, and he is the one that understands the finest mysteries and is well acquainted with them. 67:14. After this brief explanation, let us see what the Quran has stated about the physical evolution of the things of the universe and human creation. 1.4 The theory of evolution and the Quran. The Quran has explained one principle about the beginning of the system of the universe and its evolutionary stages, which is the focal point of this discussion. It states, He rules all affairs from the heavens to the earth. In the end will all affairs go up to him on a day the space whereof will be as 1,000 years of your reckoning. 32:5-6. The state of divine planning, schemes of Allah, is such that these are at the heights of Allah's knowledge in their latent form. When the aim is to bring any of these schemes into action, then its point of commencement occurs from the lows of the earth. Then that scheme, traversing its evolutionary stages, keeps on rising towards its point of completion. These stages are traversed in very lengthy time periods whose every single period is of thousands and thousands of years according to your reckoning and counting. This all continues to occur according to the law of that Allah who is also aware of the present state of every single thing and also of its latent potentials. He has such power within him that by giving suitable nourishment to everything he can make it reach its point of completion. When there is a scheme in front of the divine mash'at, this is started from its extremely low initial point, the lowest level of all. Then that scheme, traversing through evolutionary and progressive stages under those special laws which are fixed for it, reaches its final point of completion. These stages are traversed in very long time periods, sometimes each stage consisting of thousands and thousands of years and sometimes hundreds of thousands of years. The Quran states, that Malaika and Ruh ascend unto him in a day the measure whereof is as 50,000 years. 74. 1.5 The starting point. For a seed to become a tree, for a drop of water to become a pearl, and for a speck of dust to become a man, these evolutionary stages have to be traversed. One of the important schemes in the supreme schemes of the realm of Mashrit is the creation of man. The starting point of this scheme is stated to be teen, inanimate. The Quran has stated, He began the creation, Khalqa, of man with clay, teen. 32:7. It should be made clear that the basic meaning of khalq, creation, is not to bring something into existence from nothing. It means to make a new thing from different elements by producing a specific combination. That starting point which is mentioned here is that point from where life becomes evident in a physical form. There is no mention of earlier stages than this. In Surah Al-An'am it is stated, He it is who created you from clay, teen, and then decreed a stated term for you, and there is in his presence another determined term, yet you doubt within yourselves. 6:2. In Surah Hud instead of teen it is called Ard, the earth, which is even more comprehensive and explicit. It is he who has produced you, according to his law of creation, from the earth, Ard, and settled you therein. 11:61. See also 53:32. In Surah Taha it is stated, From the earth did we create you, and into it shall we return you, and from it shall we bring you out once again. 20:55. Did not make a sculpture from clay, instead commenced its creation from the stuff of clay. And surely, we did create man from a quintessence of clay. 23:12. See also 7:12-38, 76. The words sulala and min teen, quintessence of clay, require close attention. The fact is that the nourishment of everything is carried out from quintessence of clay. We sow a seed in the land. Though this seed has the potential to grow, it absorbs the elements on which its growth is dependent from the earth. If a deficiency occurs in the soil of these elements, salts, minerals, etc., then the growth of this plant is halted. It is these elements which are known as the quintessence of clay. This produce of the land is eaten by cattle, and in this way those very elements become the means for their nourishment. Carnivorous animals eat these cattle, and in this way, indirectly, those same elements become the means for their nourishment. This is that quintessence of clay from which the nourishment of these life cells takes place, which is the starting point of human life. Details of this point will come a little later. But in the stage of an animation, which is the starting point of this process, life was in a state of sleep. Its awakening occurred by a splash of water. We made from water everything living. Will they not then have Iman? 21:30. 1.6 The fountainhead of life. The water nymph of life opened its eye in the depths of the water. Scientific investigation has reached this point that the inception of the first cell of life, protoplasm, was in the ocean. This is why these kinds of salts and in the same proportion are found in it as are in the seawater. This is how the caravan of human creation migrated from the valley of dust to the destination of water. Through the mixing of water and quintessence of clay, this protoplasm adopted the shape of a cell whose form the Quran has compared to teen-e-lazib, sticky clay. Them have we created, man, out of a sticky clay. Teen-e-lazib. 37:11. 1.7 Teen-e-lazib. This teen-e-lazib is the same which is visible at the bottom of ponds and banks of pools. When the water dries, this dark-colored mud becomes very hard. And surely we created man from sounding clay, from mud molded into shape. 15:26. See also 55. 14. From the mixing of water and clay, the life cell adopted the shape of a form. In these cells, a sticky matter, the nucleus, contains all the great potentials of life, just like a tiny seed contains enfolded within it a strong tall tree which is eager to manifest its blossom. This beginning point of life is that single cell from which the branches of the tree of life sprout. Having reached a certain point, due to its zest for manifestation, a cell automatically becomes divided into two parts which are called daughter cells. 1.8 The tree of evolution. From this single cell the branches of living creation sprouted, and just like the tall frame of a tree, these spread on the face of the earth. Think of each branch as a separate species which is growing, spreading, developing and passing through evolutionary stages, each in its own respective direction. The loftiest branch among all these branches is that of the human species, which reaches up to this height from this tiny single cell after traversing different phases. Stage after stage, step by step, level after level, destination after destination. What is the matter with you, that you place not your hope for eminence from Allah, seeing that it is He who has created you in diverse stages? See you not how Allah has created the 7 heavens one above another, and made the moon a light in their midst, and made the sun as a glorious lamp? And Allah has produced you from the earth growing gradually. Opening parenthesis. 71, 13-17. Stage after stage, grade after grade, brought you here. Surely, while transforming from one state to another state, journeying on the highway of life, you will advance ahead and will also keep rising. 84. 19. From this microscopic single cell, the process of creation proceeded forward. After this first emergence, that single cell, reposing at various stages, kept progressing further until it reached that abode of the human form which is his assigned place in earthly life. It is he who has nurtured you from a single cell, then fixed various stages for you so that you stay at a station for a determined period, and then that stage hands you over to the next stage. Undoubtedly, we have explained our laws of life in detail for those who have understanding. 6. 98. In this evolutionary program i.e., moving from one destination to another stage, thousands of years elapsed, and in this way, after the initial phase of life cells, that stage arrived where the process of creation commenced via reproduction, and made man's progeny from a quintessence of the nature of a weak fluid. 32. 8. 1.9 The beginning of animal life. In other words, after being passed through all these preliminary phases, after thousands of years of planning and shaping, trimming and forming, this process was continued through the extraction of insignificant water i.e., the continuation of animal life began through reproduction via the process of procreation. The creation which took birth during this phase of the caravan of life includes all those animals which crawl and those which move using feet. And Allah has created every animal from water. Of them there are some that creep on their bellies, some that walk on 2 legs, and some that walk on 4. 24. 45. And not only those that crawl and walk on legs but birds as well i.e., all that creation whose process of procreation proceeds forward through reproduction. In other words, you can understand it in this way, that from this main branch of life many smaller branches sprouted in all sorts of directions. Thus, up to this point all these different kinds of creation are in fact different faces of one species and different individuals of one caravan. There is not an animal that lives on the earth, nor a being that flies on its wings, but forms part of communities like you. This is all happening according to our law, the book, and they all remain gathered around the guidance of their Rabb. No one can remain outside of it. 6. 38. 1.10 Distinction between male and female. This is that point where the differentiation between male and female appears before us in a tangible way. And Allah did create you from dust, then from a sperm drop. Then He made you in pairs. 35:11. This means that the expression of sexual reproduction made its appearance in the life cells at this point. These germ cells or gametes became divided into two parts. One an ovum, i.e., a female cell, and the other a spermatozoon, i.e., a male cell, i.e., one life cell, through the zeal of creation, divided into male and female. It is He who created you from a single cell, and made His mate from this. 189. See also 4:130, 20-21:39, 6:42, 11:53, 45:75, 39. 1.11 Pairs among plants. Although according to the subject in hand we wish to confine this discussion to animal life, a brief mention of some other points which appear before us becomes unavoidable. The Quran has not confined mention of the differentiation between male and female to only animals, instead its proclamation is that Allah has created pairs of everything. And of everything we have created pairs. We have detailed this, so that you may keep in view the comprehensiveness of the divine laws. 51:49. See also 43:12. There is no need for any explanation regarding males and females in animals. Modern research has also proven that in plants too there is pairing of male and female, and their abode is generally the flower of the plant. In the soft and delicate petals of a flower there is such an entity towards the top in which male stamens are kept protected. In the middle of the flower there is another part which is called the pistil, which can be considered as the womb of a female. In some plants which are called monoecious both these elements are in the same flower. Some plants are those in which one plant is male and the other plant is female. This species is called dioecious. Instead, in these plants the male reproductive element is in one flower which is called staminate, and the female element is in the other flower which is called pistillate. 1.12 Muslim scholars and the theory of evolution. To the superficial eye it appears as if this research also owes itself to modern times. But those who have knowledge are aware that Muslim scholars had not only discovered the differentiation between male and female in plants but had also figured out the theory of organic evolution in principle well before Western researchers. In this connection, the renowned research of Hakim ibn Muskawayh, died in 421 R, holds a special, distinct status in the scholarly world. In his famous journal Al-Fawz al-Asghar, he has examined this theory with particular emphasis. Discussing the evolutionary stages of plants, this scholar writes, "Now after having gone through this gradual progression, this manifests itself in an advanced form in the date palm tree and takes plants to a new height. So that if it progresses even a bit further beyond this, then it will cross the boundary of plants and will adopt the animal form. The effect of the self, nafs, of a date tree is so strong and great that strength proportional to and resembling that of animals is created. One is that, like an animal, it contains male and female elements, and for it to be fruitful it is necessary for the male element to mate with the female. This meeting is called talqi, which is akin to mating in animals. Then, in the date palm tree, other than roots and vessels, there is an entity similar to the brain of animals. This is so essential for it that if some calamity strikes it, the date tree will become withered. It is evident that the means of research of the modern era did not exist during the time of the Muslim scholars. But they had before them such a bright beacon in the form of the Quran, in the light of which facts would become unveiled and appear before them. The Quranic references regarding pairs of everything has already been alluded to above. About plants themselves, the Quran states, "Glory to Allah, who created in pairs all things that the earth produces, as well as their own human kind and other things of which they have no knowledge as yet." 36. 1.13 Meaning of Ziyu. It should be borne in mind that the meaning of Ziyu is fundamentally not only that of a pair. By this is meant such a pair in which the development of one individual cannot be accomplished without the other individual. For example, the two wheels of a cart are called the Ziyu of each other. If one of these is not present, then the other becomes useless, and when both of these are present and are the same, then the purpose of their creation can be fulfilled. By bearing this concept of Ziyu in mind, many aspects become unveiled. 1.14 The human form. After this short discussion we can return to our original subject. This single-cell organism which has been mentioned earlier has also spent eons in the animal form, and during these time periods man was not yet an entity worthy of mention. The Quran states, "Has there not been over man a long period of time when he was nothing, not even mentioned?" 76. 1. From among all these branches of animal life, one branch emerged and shot up. This was the branch of the human form, i.e., the animal form was gradually refined. By pruning its rough excesses, its delicate and refined potentials were galvanized, and in this way the bride of life became manifest in the glory of human eminence. The Quran states, "Him who created you, then fashioned you in due proportion, from every respect, and gave you a just balance." 82. 7. Then it was bestowed with a balanced stature, i.e., containing the best of proportion and balance. We have indeed created man in the best of molds. Ahsan-e Taqweem. 95. 4. In whom proportion and balance reached its most beautiful stature. In another verse this is called Ahsan-e Sawr. 64. 2-3. What is this Ahsan-e Taqweem? In this best of statures, what is the distinctive trait? Which is that special potential on account of which man became the possessor of a different status from the previous links in the process of evolution? The Quran has explained this in one word, and the reality is that only that word can define its distinctive traits in a prominent and comprehensive way. It states, "Then he fashioned him in due proportion, and breathed into him something of his ruh." Divine energy. 32. 9. In other words, this lofty branch of the tree of evolution was refined in every respect, suitable potentials and abilities were created in it, and it was made balanced and moved forward. And when these potentials became created in it, then by taking it forward from the animalistic level, an essence of divine energy was infused into it. Now it became a human being able to see, hear, and think and understand. And he gave you the faculties of hearing and sight and fawad, emotions and intellect. But there are few who fully develop these potentials. 32. 9. 1.15 The eminence of humanity. What is this ruh of Allah, whose amazing displays have made this entity created from water and clay the life purpose of the universe? Details of this will be given at its own place. At this point let us just look at what is achieved from this breathing of ruh. In the words of the Quran, hearing, sight, and mind were bestowed through this. Though these are merely 3 words when uttered, if you look at it more closely, the complete world of the eminence and distinction of humanity becomes concentrated within these 3 facets. Hearing and seeing are representatives of the human senses which transmit information about the outer world. This data reaches the human mind, and as a result of this man becomes capable of making a decision for himself. This ability of his to make decisions like this is called his freedom to choose and intent. It is as a consequence of this that man has become a creation with responsibility. In Surah Al-Dar it is stated, "Verily we created man from a drop of sperm which has different latent potentials mingled in it, and then we continued to pass him through various conditions until we made him as one who hears and sees. Then we showed him the path of guidance and left it to him, to accept it if he wishes or to reject it if he wishes." 76. 2-3. 1.16 The potential for choice and intent. This is that greatest distinction of all which separates man from animal life, i.e., man being possessor of freedom to choose and intent. Having reached this point, this link in the process of evolution becomes completely separated from its previous links. The human form is not the sum total of the potentialities and abilities of the previous statuses of its process. Rather, having reached here, only one type of change occurred in all of these traits and potentials, which was completely different from the process of evolution that was continuing up to this point in time. The outcome of this change is human freedom to choose and intent, due to which there is dynamism in the pulse of the universe, and turbulence is generated in the continually flowing stream of life. Without the freedom to choose and intent, this world would have remained a colorless compilation of mountains, rivers, and jungles, and a bland, dull zoo of beasts, cattle and birds. The soothing light of beauty and the fiery desire of love would not have been in its destiny. All of these are the magical exhibits of the breathing of Ruh, as a result of which this wilderness has transformed into a theater of color and fragrance. This means that the divine attributes have been bestowed in him as potentialities in a finite form. This trait was never the share of any creation before this. This was that breathing of Ruh, due to which this atom of clay became worthy of prostration by the universal forces. Malaika. Behold, your Rabb said to the universal forces, Malaika, I am about to create man from clay. When I have fashioned him in due proportion, by passing him through various evolutionary stages, and breathed into him of my Ruh, fall you then down in obeisance unto him. 38. 71-72. This is the reply according to the Quran to the question, how did the first ever man come into existence? Could you assert that the holders of knowledge and intellect, reasoning and wisdom, science and specialization, have been able to present anything more than this or something different from this? And in which time period did this disclosure of reality take place? In that time period when the world was not even familiar with science and its related constituents and disciplines. Before moving on, let us glance at this comprehensive verse once again from which this subject initially started. Look at it and reflect with what beauty and enchantment this complete and very long story is summarized within only a few sentences. The Quran states, He rules all affairs from the heavens to the earth. In the end will all affairs go up to him on a day, the space whereof will be as 1,000 years of your reckoning. He who has made everything which he has created most good. He began the creation of man with nothing more than clay, and made his progeny from a quintessence of the nature of a fluid insignificant. Further, he fashioned him in due proportion, and breathed into him something of his Ruh. And he gave you the faculties of hearing and sight and mind. Fawad. But few are those who develop their potentials to the full and employ them at the right place. 32. 5-7-9. From this process of evolution mankind, not any particular individual, came into being. 1.17 The aim of the Quran. But at this juncture bring this reality to the fore again which has already been referred to at the start, i.e., The Quran is not a book of history and geography, physics and chemistry, biology or earth sciences. It is such a code of life by following which humanity reaches that objective which is the aim of its journey of life, by traversing stages of development and evolution. If allusions are found in it about these aforementioned principal sciences and disciplines, then these are in order to provide guidance for this destination, and to focus the vision on this objective. For example, just take this doctrine of evolution. The foremost link of this long process commences from inanimate matter. Up to this point even a materialistic scientist is in agreement, as his research has led him to this point on his own. But the Quran invites the probing vision to go behind and beyond this. It states, do not consider this matter, which is called the first tangible link of the process of evolution, as being the beginning and the end. There was such a time in the past when this matter was not even an entity. As has been described earlier regarding the creation of man, it is stated that such an era has already passed in relation to him when he was not even an entity worthy of mention. 76:1. And in another verse, I did indeed create you before, when you had been nothing. 19:9. This was about the beginning. Let us now proceed towards the other end. When Western scholars discovered how a particle of dust after passing through its evolutionary stages has reached to the level of a human being, they closed this chapter of the Book of the Universe and concluded that the present stage of man is the last link in the long process of evolution. There is nothing after that. But by focusing the attention on the various links of this lengthy process, the Quran immediately turned the inquisitive gaze towards this direction, that the present life of man is not the last link in this process, rather it has to reach some other destination by advancing further according to the law of evolution. From this present destination, the name of the next destination is the life in the hereafter. It has proclaimed in clear words that human life consists of two levels. One level is that of the animalistic life which he has acquired from the lower level via the evolutionary process. This is his physical life, which is under the obeisance of the same laws as those that the life of other animals is subject to, i.e., to remain alive by eating and drinking and then to die after a period of time. But this death is the demise of the physical body of a human being. This is the end of that life which we have defined as being at the animalistic level. The second level of his life is that of the human level, which is based on nafhi, the divine attributes. This is the human self or his ego, which can endure even after his physical death. This is the status of humanity. In this status, physical laws do not work for the development, progress and endurance of life. Here, another code of laws is operating. Its details will be covered later. This is that very life which is enabled to traverse further stages of evolution in the arena of the life of the hereafter. The Quran explains the doctrine of evolution in such a style that the life of the hereafter or resurrection should become apparent automatically as a logical inference. In the process of evolution, it presents this fact right from the beginning that nothing in the universe has been created without a purpose. When this clarification has been made regarding other things of the universe, that these are not created without a purpose, then could man, who is the leader in the arena of the universe and focus of the system of the world, have been created without a purpose? Can it be possible that from the seed to the branches, every fiber of a tree should embody some purpose, but that its fruit should have been produced without any aim and purpose? This is not possible. That is why it is stated, "Did you then think that we had created you in jest, and that you would not be brought back to us for account?" 23:115. 1.18 From the beginning to the end. At another place, the explanation for this is given in the following words. Does man think that he will be left uncontrolled, without purpose? Sudan. Was he not a drop of sperm emitted? Then did he become a clinging clot. Then did Allah make and fashion him in due proportion. And of him he made two sexes, male and female. Has not he the power to give life to the dead? 75, 36, 40. For the achievement of the purpose of human creation, the Quran has declared this life as being essential for the life in the hereafter. And this is that purpose towards which, after describing the gradual phases of the process of evolution, the Quran wishes to draw the attention of the human mind. The Quran states, "Man we did create from a quintessence of clay. Then we placed him as a drop of sperm in a place of rest, firmly fixed. Then we made the sperm into a clot of congealed blood. Then of that clot we made a fetus lump. Then we made out of that lump bones and clothed the bones with flesh. Then, see how it was brought into existence by making it into another kind of creation. So blessed be Allah, the best to create. After that, at length you will die. Again, on the day of judgment will you be raised up." 23, 12-16. About the resurrection of man, this objection is seen by the superficial gaze, that when these specifically arranged constituents become dispersed, then how will there be a new constitution? And never mind the superficial gaze only, today most European thinkers, who are considered by the world to be at the utmost heights of knowledge and vision, are trapped in this very superficiality. This is because just as they treaded on previous paths solely with the aid of the suppositions of their minds and were stumbling at every step, they wish to continue to advance forward from this stage in the light of their own concepts alone and continue to flounder. The world will witness that the way in which, after wandering in the desert for a period of time, these people have reached one aspect of reality in the case of the creation of man, ultimately they will also have to arrive at the same conclusion about the resurrection. Second life, to which the Quran invites. This is because the invitation of the Quran is not the voice of conjecture and guesswork, it is the invitation of knowledge and vision, certainty and conviction. Its proclamation is, "And your creation or your resurrection is in no wise but as an individual self. For Allah is He who hears and sees all things." 31, 28. For that almighty hand which has this power that He can make the existing form of a human being from the very first life cell. What difficulty can there be for Him to rearrange a new constitution after the disintegration of the physical elements? The Quran states, "From the earth did we create you, and into it shall we return you, and from it shall we bring you out once again." 20, 55. At another place it is stated, "They say, what, when we are reduced to bones and dust, should we really be raised up to be a new creation? Say, nay, be you stones or iron, or created matter which, in your minds, is hardest to be raised up. Yet shall you be raised up." Then will they say, "Who will cause us to return?" Say, "He who created you first." Then will they wag their heads towards you, and say, "When will that be?" Say, "Maybe it will be quite soon." 17, 49-51. Along with this, also look at this verse of Surah Al-Hajj. 22, 5, and the reality will emerge even more clearly before you. 1.19 Death and Life. At this point it is also important to highlight this fact that the Quran does not only discuss the second life which is to come next after this life, but it also provides instructions about the death and life of this life. It terms the rise of nations as their life, and the decline and inertia as their death. It informs us repeatedly what those principles are according to which life is bestowed on nations, and what that path is, by the adoption of which death shrouds them. It presents narratives about the rise and fall of former nations. Not because it is a book of history, but to bring to the fore evidence about the consequences and effects of the deeds through the law of destruction and survival. For this the Quran has detailed one principle in explicit words. The provision of all bounties is connected to the divine law, who is possessor of all power and sovereignty, but he has fixed scales and proportions for all matters, according to which the results of deeds are established. The decision of life and death of nations is according to this very law. These trials and tribulations take place so that life and its elevation become the portion of the one who lives the most balanced life. His law remains supreme over everything and is the provider of protection from destruction. 67. 1-2. In other words, the law of death and life has been established for this reason, that it should manifest clearly who among you performs those deeds which are life-giving according to this law, and who is such that he imposes destruction on himself. The Quran states that this clear and unambiguous law has been detailed for this very reason, so that whoever is to die may die according to clear laws, and whoever is to live may also live according to clear laws. And Allah is all-hearing and all-knowing. 8:42. 1.20 The meaning of righteous deeds. Amal-e Saleh. Through various aspects and different facets of this basic principle of the law of evolution, the Quran embeds it in the heart that in this arena of endeavor and deeds only that species can survive which has the ability to endure, whose deeds are righteous. Only that can progress forward which produces the ability within itself for forward progression. By quoting examples of other species it provides evidence about human life itself, stating, look at this great and wondrous tree of evolution and ponder over this fact, that how many branches were there that dried up completely and fell. How many flowers were there which having wilted and withered dropped onto the ground and became crushed beneath the feet of passers-by. Contrary to this, there are many branches which became verdant and vibrant, what varieties of exquisite and beautiful flowers they produced and how many types of delightful and delectable fruits they bore. It invites us to reflect on this law of nature and consider what happened to those societies and nations of the past. Its decree is that, as with different species, this is also the same law for the death and the life of nations. That nation which no longer remains fit for life becomes destroyed. No respite is given to it in this decision, i.e., there is not an iota of advancement or delay in the appearance of the consequences of the deeds. The Quran states, to every people, group, nation, species, is a term appointed, for manifestation of consequences. When the time comes, not for a moment can they cause it to be delayed, nor can they advance it. 7:34. After stating this principle, it is explained in the next verse what law is established for remaining alive and to survive. O you children of Adam! Whenever there come to you messengers from amongst you, rehearsing my laws unto you, then those who are righteous and mend their lives, on them shall be no fear or grief of being ruined and destroyed. 7:35. These are the ones who will remain and progress forward, who will have no apprehension about becoming destroyed and ruined. In contrast to them, the Quran states, but those who reject our laws and treat them with arrogance, they are the companions of the fire, to dwell therein forever. 7. 1.21 Principles for the rise and fall of nations. Reflect that in the first verse a principle has been pronounced concerning the death and life of nations. And following this it has been clarified what the technique is in order to remain protected from annihilation and to remain safeguarded and free from the fear of ruin. And what that system is by following which man can reach the Jannat, paradise, of peace and tranquility. This is not the time for details of this system. At this point observe only this, that according to the Quran the real principle of this system is this, that the code of life which has been given to mankind via his Anbiya, the messengers of Allah, should be made the aim of life. In the following pages, the visionary narrative of this life-giving message and spirit-invigorating system will be presented, that system by living life according to which the consequence will be that that ability will be created in man, as a result of which he will be able to oppose those destructive and annihilating forces courageously, and no fear of annihilation and grief of ruin will remain for him. If he does not act thus, then Allah's law of succession and substitution will deliver its absolute verdict, and another nation will replace this nation. Your Rabb is self-sufficient with regard to nourishment and sustenance. In fact, he has means of sustenance for the whole universe. But this sustenance is made available according to his law. If you go against his law, he will remove you and will bring that nation in your place which will have the ability to succeed according to this law. This will occur according to that law by which he raised you up from the posterity of another nation. 6. 133. See also 35:16. In another verse it is stated, if you turn away from these laws, he will substitute in your stead another people. Then they would not be like you. 47:38. See also 70:41. From the ashes of a nation another nation arises, like a musician creating fiery music provoking a self. Those nations which are going to disappear are eliminated, and those which are going to live occupy their place. 1.22 The law of evolution for the eminence of mankind. As has been noted above, the essential principle of evolution is that only that species can survive and progress forward which has the ability and capacity for self-preservation and survival, and is able to confront all those opposing forces which are bent upon destroying it, and which contains within itself the means of protection against unfavorable circumstances, a hostile environment and causes of destruction. Those nations and peoples who lost the means of defense and the power of protection, became annihilated. Those who maintained these, remained protected from destruction. This part of the law of evolution is connected with the physical life of man, and in this regard there is no difference between man and the previous link in the chain before him, i.e., the animal level. But as has already been stated, man is one step ahead of other animals. And it is this very point which raises him from the horizon of the animalistic level and brings him to the status of humanity. That point where the Quran makes him distinct from other animals by breathing ruh into him. 32:9. Hence that law of evolution, which prior to human beings was merely about physical life in all species, having reached the status of humanity, has also brought the human self over and above the physical life, within the sphere of its influence and operation. This means that just as it is necessary for man in order to protect his physical life that he should produce the ability for protection against opposing forces, as other animals do, similarly it is essential for him that for the protection of his self, and for its development and nourishment, he should produce within himself the means for protection against all confronting and competing forces. Ignoring the security, nourishment and development of the human self and considering the protection and preservation of the animalistic life to be merely the purpose of life, is kufr. The state of those people who deny the divine laws is such that they take advantage of immediate benefits and in this way consider eating and drinking as the purpose of life, just like animals eat and drink. The abode of such people is hell. 47:12. In other words, the purpose of life of those people who live life under the obedience of the systems created by men rather than under Allah's laws is merely the nourishment, protection and survival of the physical life. It is nothing more beyond this. How can the nation which adopts apathy like this towards protection of that self i.e., the development of humanity, be saved from destruction and ruin? In the next verse it is stated, "And how many cities with more power than your city which has driven you out, have we destroyed for their crimes? And there was none to aid them." 47:13. Why is this? It is because, is then one who is on a clear path from his Rab no better than one to whom the evil of his conduct seems pleasing, and such as follow their own lusts? 47:14. In other words, the individual who makes his own desires and ideologies his highway of life in place of Allah's code of life can never escape destruction. This is because that law of evolution which is the code for the protection and eminence of humanity is guidance which is revealed only from the direction of Allah, that Allah who is Zil Mare. From that Allah who is master of the paths of eminence. 73. Now even the materialistic thinkers in Europe itself are gradually acknowledging that in the process of evolution, other than materialism, morality also plays a big role. Hence, in the Encyclopaedia Britannica, the author on evolution ends his essay with the following words. Patriotism, religion, art, science and literature have great weightage in survival, and these play a very useful role in the process of evolution. In this connection, morality does not exist as an unimportant external force which is confronting a tyrannical and immoral heavenly system. Rather, this is in itself a creation of evolution, and is an important force to incorporate gradual changes into a correct mold of the process of evolution. We hope, rather are certain, that those civilizations which are based on justice, courage, constitution and discipline, and strong ethics will ultimately be the most successful and enduring. If only the Quran had been available to Europe, then it would have seen which civilization is it that is based on justice and courage, discipline and organization, and strong ethics. If it had comprehended the correct meanings of these words according to the Quran, then it would not have been ruined and degraded as it is today, because its own destruction is also taking place according to this law of evolution. This was about the condition of those who make their physical life the ultimate purpose of life. Contrary to this, ignoring the necessities of physical life and in your own mind making efforts to become isolated and adopting dissociation for the enhancement of mere spirituality, is unwise according to the law of evolution, the consequence of which is destruction. For the protection of an army it is also very important that the walls of a fort be made of steel. This is the very reason that wherever the Quran has emphasized protection and endurance, elevation and development of the human self, together with this declaring the life of monasticism as being wrong, it has declared as essential the acquisition of material powers for strengthening of physical life. And in this way, it has bestowed such a complete code of life according to the correct law of evolution in which man can keep himself established in the existing stage. And then in the stage after this he can keep producing the ability within himself to live life at a higher level, superior and loftier to his existing life. We have seen from the explanations in the previous pages that in the whole of the universe, in which man is also included, one law of Allah is in operation, according to which every single thing which creates the ability within itself to live remains alive, and the one that loses this ability becomes erased. This law of elimination and establishment is explained by the Quran in a comprehensive verse as follows. Allah's law of Mash'at is this, that whichever individual or nation wishes to be ruined, that it is ruined. Whichever desires stability and strength, that it is bestowed with stability and strength. This law of his is operating in the system of the universe, and its origin and basis, mother of the book, is with Allah himself. This is why no one can create any change in it. 13:39. This verse is also referring to another great fact, which it is necessary to highlight. We have seen in the foregoing pages that, according to the law of evolution, only he can live who has within him the ability to survive. Only he can progress who has the capacity within him to advance, i.e., that species which, in the struggle of life, by engaging with unfavorable forces defeats them and in this way presents the evidence of its being alive, remains alive, but the one which cannot do this becomes eliminated. 1.231 Important fact. Darwin has defined this principle as the survival of the fittest. But the meanings which Darwin and his compatriots deduced from these words were different from the Quranic meaning. In the 19th century, the concept of the universe which European physicists held was mechanistic. The explanation of this concept is quite lengthy, but in summary its gist was that this universe has somehow or other come into existence and is now operating automatically through the energy of its internal forces. Neither in its creation, nor after this in its progress and evolution, is there any role for any purpose, intention or scheme. It is a blind force due to which this whole system of the universe is in motion. Hence, whichever species acquires power, it becomes selected to survive and progress forward. According to these physicists, this process is called natural selection. In common language you can understand it as this. According to this doctrine, that whatever exists today in the universe, it is not present because it was necessary to maintain its existence for some aim or scheme, but because somehow or other the ability became created within it to exist and to progress further. This is the way nature selected it for survival. The Quran declares this concept and doctrine to be incorrect at a fundamental level. According to the Quran, this whole system of the universe has been brought into existence according to a specific scheme, purpose or wisdom, and is progressing forward according to this same purpose. But whatever thing creates the ability to live and progress forward according to Allah's law, its remaining alive and evolving is useful for this purpose. And for that thing which does not produce such an ability within itself, it is better for it to move away from the path of this great purpose. In the above quoted verse 13:39, with him is the mother of the book, means that this law of elimination and establishment is not just working blindly. There is a great purpose behind it for which all this is taking place. Nowadays Western scholars themselves are gradually reaching this conclusion that the mechanistic concept of the 19th century was false. And they are acknowledging this fact that the whole system of the universe has been brought into existence for a supreme purpose and is progressing forward according to an important scheme. Details of these matters will be covered later. But when we say that the whole system of the universe is functioning within a defined program according to a precise code, this does not mean that it is like a clock which its creator has wound up once and after this it continues to run according to a predetermined map. Such a concept about the universe is also a non-Quranic concept. According to the Quran, the universe is dynamic and not static. Of him seeks its need every creature in the heavens and on earth. Every day in new splendor does he shine. 55:29. Whatever there is in the universe, it all owes its sustenance and nourishment to the Rububiyyat of Allah. That law continually nourishes these things, as a result of which they display themselves in a new form every moment, and in this way diverse creative additions keep taking place in the universe. It is stated in the Quran, He adds to creation as He pleases. 35:1. Allah continually makes ever new additions in His creations. 1.24 Compulsion and discretion. At this stage, pointing out another important fact, for the sake of elucidation, will not be deemed inappropriate. It has been stated above that the universe is busy functioning according to a defined program for a specific aim and scheme. From this our mind is led to the fact that in this scenario, when everything in the universe is following a particular program, then man, who himself is also a thing of the universe, will be considered to be deterministic. But, as will be discussed in the next chapter, man has also been given freedom to choose and intent. If man goes against this program which has been referred to above, i.e., the program to achieve the purpose of the creation of the universe, then it has no effect on this supreme program, because the system of the universe is in the hands of such a creator whose scope of sovereignty cannot even be conceived of. However, as a result of this, instead of growth and eminence, man's own self falls into a hell of backwardness and decline. But if he makes efforts for the accomplishment of this program, then by the fulfillment of this program the accomplishment of his own self occurs. This is that point having reached which the hands are his and the power within them is that of Allah. The arrows are his, and the mash'at of Allah is with the destiny of the bows. The Quran states, "It was not your act, but Allah's." 8:17. When you released the arrow, it was not you that released it, but, in reality, it was Allah who did so. This is that point about which Dr. Hans Driesch writes in his book, The Greatest Design. Having reached this point, we can call ourselves the soldiers of God. And in the words of Iqbal, and in this progressive change Allah becomes a co-worker with him, provided man takes the initiative. Verily Allah will not change the condition of men, till they change what is in themselves. 13:12. If he does not take the initiative, if he does not evolve the inner richness of his being, if he ceases to feel the inward push of advancing life, then the spirit within him hardens into stone and he is reduced to the level of dead matter. That Jamaat which Driesch called the soldiers of God, is the same as the one which the Quran designates with the eminent title of Hizbullah. They are the party of Allah. Hizbullah. Truly it is the party of Allah that will achieve felicity. 58:22. 1.25a Supplementary aspect. In the previous pages it has been additionally noted that according to the Quran there was a time when even matter itself did not exist. The issue of the existence and occurrence of matter has continued as a focus of discussion and disagreement right from the very beginning. Human consciousness in its era of infancy could not grasp how this mind-boggling universe of matter came into existence from nothing. From where did matter become created? But what are the findings of scientific research in the modern era about the reality of matter? Clear details will appear before us regarding this under the topic of Wahi a few pages further on. At this juncture only one excerpt is considered sufficient. An expert on astronomy in the modern era, Sir James Jeans, writes, "The tendency of modern physics is to resolve the whole material universe into waves, and nothing but waves. These waves are of two kinds. Bottled up waves, which we call matter, and unbottled waves, which we call radiation or light. The process of annihilation of matter is merely that of unbottling wave energy and setting it free to travel through space. These concepts reduce the whole universe to a world of radiation, potential or existent, so that the whole story of its creation can be told with perfect accuracy and completeness in the 6 words. God said, 'Let there be light.'" Sir James Jeans had commented on this issue some years earlier. Research into atomic energy and practical experiments have now caused this reality to become uncovered like daylight, that what we call matter is in reality nothing more than atoms, i.e., the negative and positive power of electricity. And when it is taken one step further back, then this force of energy remains as pure energy, which should be understood not as the domain of creation, visible world, but as related to the domain of Amra. 1.26 Summary of the discussion. This question as to how the very first man came into existence in the world has remained a cause for thousands of mysteries and a bewildering quest for the human mind. As a consequence, in those religions in which superstitions have taken the place of facts, and which religion of the world is there in which this did not occur? Strange and bizarre tales have been made use of for the solution of this belief. But whatever the Quran has declared regarding this is precisely that towards which these discoveries which are attained through knowledge and vision are guiding us. According to scientific discoveries, particles of dust became shaped into the human form by traversing different stages after many eons. In other words, right at the beginning no one single person appeared in the human form, rather a whole species came into existence. Details of these various stages are summarized in the visionary verses of the Quran in a marvelous way. But the Quran goes one step further than even this. It declares that the present life of man is not the last link in the process of evolution, instead it is a precursor of the coming life. View it rather as this: that according to the Quran life is like a perpetually flowing stream whose end does not occur in the present valley. The life of man is not merely an animalistic life but is higher and loftier than this. Now the evolution of this human life will commence. i.e., eminence of humanity. For this, the Quran bestows a complete system. By spending life according to this, the ability to develop, spread and prosper is created in this eminence of humanity, because of which this gradually keeps rising to ever new heights. But all of this occurs within a collective life, not at an individual level. Even European researchers and philosophers themselves, who used to consider the physical evolution of man as the final word, are now gradually advancing forward from this and are reaching the conclusion that after physical evolution the stages of the evolution of the self will now arrive. Hence, Professor Joad writes, "The next stage of man's evolution shall be of the self and of the mind." At first man evolved to a human level by evolving from the animal level. Then he equipped himself with tools and implements and mastered the arts and crafts in our times. Now it has become necessary for him to move ahead of this stage, and that physical evolution which had forced him to progress, caused him to step into the human stage from the animalistic stage. Then his instinctive needs made him create instruments, tools, and he became the creator of machine and steam. Similarly, he is forced today to take a step forward, and this step of his is not mechanistic but will be towards the development of his self and his mind. But this progress is not possible without wahi.